Every hour across the world, thousands of people are doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time, looking for sneakers online, ranging from this Donald Trump design pair for $400
You're sneakerheads, right?
to these Louis Vuitton Nikes selling for $190,000.
Oh my God. Want to touch it?
The market for sneakers is worth around $147 billion a year. A huge chunk of that market goes to one brand, Nike. So how do they do that? HQ for Nike is here in Beaverton, Oregon, but almost 3 times as many people make Nike shoes in Indonesia than live in Nike's hometown. Their manufacturing map is huge because Nike outsources almost every single part of the process to make its shoes. Let's take you on a trip. If you've bought a new pair of Nikes recently, your shoes have been on quite an adventure. The cotton comes from as far away as India or Turkey. The synthetic leather is likely to be from China, the rubber probably from Malaysia. But it's in Vietnam that Nike's intricate supply chain all comes together. More than 40% of all shoes Nike makes are assembled in 34 factories across the country. From there, they're sent out to the world via distribution centres on container ships.
It's frequently claimed that shipping is responsible for carrying 90% of the goods that we use on a daily basis. Clearly, a very significant part of global supply chains, particularly for the more bulky objects.
The dimensions of these ships are enormous, carrying over 20,000 containers each. Your Nikes might be on one of these locked away, setting out from the ports like Chai Mep near Ho Chi Minh City. If your destination is the Nike European HQ in Larkdale, Belgium, it's headed to Antwerp. Your package will head for the open water ahead of a 3-week trip. Between 10 to 15% of all global trade is done by ships passing through this piece of water from Asia to Europe via the Suez Canal, 30% of the world's container traffic. Straddling the Indian Ocean and the calm waters of the Red Sea is the al-Mandab, also known as the Gate of Tears, from the coast of Africa to the edge of the Arabian Peninsula. Cross currents, reefs and rocky outcrops on the African side signify the entrance to the Red Sea. Just 29 kilometres separate the two land masses, bringing ships ever closer to the coast of Yemen, making them a prime target for anyone hoping to stop $1 trillion worth of goods right there on the edge of the Suez. Say a group looking to gain international legitimacy and bring global trade to its knees.
Yemen sits at the southernmost point of the Arabian Peninsula, so it borders Saudi Arabia to the north and Oman as well, and it sits just across the Red Sea from Djibouti, so that it controls one part of the entrance into the Red Sea. It's called the al-Mandab. And Yemen is in the news at the moment for largely that reason, because it has got that control over and access to the Red Sea, which the Houthis are taking advantage of to target ships that are bound for Israel or ships that have connections to the United States or the UK, and then some other ships have been caught up there as well.
When Israel responded to the Hamas attacks of October 7, within days the rockets started firing toward Israeli targets from Yemen. They were from a group called Ansar Allah, or the Houthi movement. Their motto is, God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews, victory to Islam. This group has waged a war against the internationally recognised government for more than a decade. It's a long, complicated story, but after taking the capital Sana'a in 2014, it became further embroiled in a civil war which has seen thousands die primarily due to hunger. Since 2015, Saudi Arabia, along with its regional allies, have been trying to stop a Houthi takeover of the country. More than 25,000 airstrikes took place in a bombing campaign that ended in 2022. The conflict is stuck at a stalemate. The group are still without control of the country's oil fields and the port city of Aden after a decade of fighting. This incursion was backed by the United States and the UK, who play a supporting role with sanctions along with selling arms to Saudi forces.
We see a war that's been carrying on for 8 years now. I think there is a very important question to be asked about whether or not that war would have ended a lot earlier. Were there not the dogged engagement from the GCC states and their supporters in the West, and also Iran?
So why would a militia group that controls just part of a country with no money and no food, under crippling sanctions, get involved in the Gaza conflict?
Defense of the Palestinians against the Israelis in the war in Gaza, that's very important to the Houthis. It's important ideologically and it's important politically. But keep in mind what the Houthis want. The Houthis want to rule Yemen, and they want to rule Yemen and be economically sustainable in order to do so. Now, for them, being able to show themselves to the region and to their own population as the defenders of the Palestinian people when no one else would do it is extremely valuable. They have gotten incredible traction within Yemen and across the region for doing that. But if we think in terms of what the Houthis want in Yemen and the fact that they want to rule much of, if not all of, much of the Yemeni population, they need resources in order to be able to do that. And they don't really have resources at the moment.
The Houthis are making the most of the chaos to further the goal of taking over Yemen. To do so, they've utilised Yemen's strategic card, the Bab al-Mandab, to take full effect. In November, Houthi forces seized the ship, the Galaxy Leader, taking the crew and the vessel to a nearby port. That same day, the group said it would target ships carrying the flag of Israel, ships operated by Israeli companies, or ships owned by Israeli companies. Its stance widened, taking on effectively all container vessels passing through the area. Its justification for the conflict was to fight in solidarity with Palestinians and until aggression against our brothers in Gaza stop. The Houthi attacks on shipping are now indiscriminate. For months, crews have disappeared and been taken hostage as bargaining chips in a spiralling conflict. The response has been one all too familiar in the region.
The US says tonight that it is not interested in a war with Yemen, just hours after American and British missiles hit Houthi rebel positions there.
US and UK bombing missions have commenced on Houthi targets. Separate to this is the US-led group of nations protecting the Red Sea. Along with the Western powers is a list of allies that includes navies from Singapore, Sri Lanka, and even support from Seychelles. The mission's name, Prosperity Guardian, offers little doubt that this is in defence of global trade. On top of this, in an attempt to project their power, India has 10 warships in the region, while the European Union has joined the fleet with boats offered by France, Germany, Italy and Belgium. On top of this, the US has conducted individual strikes on the region, such as killing a Hezbollah leader in Iraq. So that's multiple interconnected, yet distinctively different missions by nations from Belgium to India, taking aim at defending trade and attacking targets in the Red Sea, against a group from Yemen, which the US says is backed by Iran, who are defending Palestinians in a war in Gaza between Hamas and Israel. The mental gymnastics to keep on top of this operational theatre becomes more complex by the day.
When you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
But is it working? The Houthis are also looking to expand their tactics beyond shipping, with announcements that they will attempt to create a permit for shipping traffic that transits through Yemeni waters. But it's not just a key to global shipping, but also the transit of data and communications too. Cables under the Red Sea that provide global internet and telecommunications are said to have been cut, increasingly impacting traffic and reliability on the network. This shows the nuance to the Houthi cause. There is complexity in their mission, including how much control Iran has over the group.
There is substantial Iranian support logistically and training going into Yemen, and the Houthis would not be able to fight in the way that they are fighting without them. That said, the Houthis aren't just blindly following what Iran says that they should do. When the Houthis took the capital back in 2014, the Iranians were not supporters of that. They had counseled them against it. But this is what the Houthis wanted to do, and they did it because the Houthis are a domestic, political and military force. And to understand what they're doing, you have to look first and foremost to their domestic political agenda.
On the surface, it may appear that Houthi attacks on shipping is a purely supportive act for Palestinians at war in Gaza. However, the group is playing for its own goals.
They need secure access to the Red Sea via a port in Hodeidah. They need oil. That's the main thing that they need. They have not been able to conquer Yemen's oil fields yet. They are still controlled by, or largely controlled by Yemeni government forces. So in order for them to be able to capture the oil fields, they need to be able to recruit more people to launch a viable assault.
Opportunism is a key motivating factor, taking advantage of the crisis to achieve their aim of taking Yemen. Across the globe, sympathies for the war in Palestine are interchangeable.
The Houthis are straight up balling right now.
So we love hearing about the Houthis and what they bring to the table because, baby, all they bring to the table is action.
However, concerns over growing support for Houthi actions denies the lived experience of those under their control.
The recruitment drives that they can now hold as a result of the stance that they're taking in the Red Sea has made an incredible difference. The Houthis are not liked. The Houthis are brutally repressive. They exercise a form of population control that is not seen in many other places around the world. They have really followed the Iranian lead in that. For that reason, Yemenis really hate the Houthis, and you tend to hear a lot of commentary at the moment, particularly from people who don't speak to Yemenis who live under their control, sort of thinking that this is a good thing. This is not a good thing for Yemenis. This is going to entrench their control over a population that is really, really suffering.
The swirling complexity of connected conflicts has now merged with a threat to global trade routes. The people caught in the middle range from someone buying shoes online to those suffering under the brutality of a civil war. The ripple effects of this are having strange outcomes, and not all are intentional.